Welcome to By All Means Necessary, Real Recovery Talk. I'm Marco Murillo, and I'm a grateful recovering addict. This is episode 4 with a really good friend of mine, Jared Flash Gordon. How you doing, buddy?
What's up?
I actually met Jared on Instagram. I saw a post a couple years back regarding recovery, and I hit him up. I lived in Jupiter, and I hit him up, and we were messaging back and forth. We moved down to Boca, and I was with you when you picked up your 5 years, right? Your 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Still sober.
Right. Over 6.5 years sober, right?
Yeah. I'm more than that. Well, yeah, I guess. December, I have 7 years. So, a couple months away.
And you know, one of the main reasons that I wanted to come in and have you share your story is that what you went through in terms of when you were young, your trauma, but the riveting details that you give, how you made it out. And that to me that's right. One of the main reasons I started this podcast, because it's not about any war stories. It's really about the defining moment that you really explain in your story and how you actually maintain that daily. Because for you, it's daily.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So let's chop it up. Let's start from the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Manhattan.
Okay.
Lenox Hills Hospital, September 6th, 1988.
All right.
I was brought into this world. I lived in Long Island in Nassau County for 14 years, and then I moved to Astoria, Queens.
Okay.
I lived there for like almost another 14 years probably. Yeah, because I moved to Milwaukee when I was 28 or 29 for like a year and a half. Then I moved down here almost 3 years ago. I just turned 34, obviously, a couple days ago.
So you had both parents.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's go back to Queens.
Okay. Queens.
Let's go back to Queens. You had both parents.
Correct.
Brothers and sisters?
2 brothers, one older and one younger. I'm the middle child.
And so what was that like? Anything in
So we had a great life.
You had a great life.
Yeah, I didn't come from like poverty or anything like that. Actually, I came from like the opposite.
Okay.
My father is a blue collar guy, worked his ass off, still works his ass off, but he did really well for himself. He's actually just selling it now. Like he's closing next week on his business that he's worked there for like 50 years. He started working there when he was 13. It was my grandfather's business. But he owns a wholesale hardware company. He was also a landlord, owned a couple of apartment buildings in the city or in Long Island City. And he did well for himself. We lived, like I said, we lived in Long Island. We were living on the North Shore of Long Island,
Right.
In a town called Roslyn Heights.
Right.
Really high, tax bracket. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just explaining.
Oh, yeah.
This is just the way my life was.
Right.
I never had to ask for anything. I got what I wanted. And if I wanted something, I got it. It wasn't like, I never had to like beg for anything.
So there wasn't really, in terms of growing up, there wasn't any divorce. You had your parents, you had your family.
Well, my parents always stayed together, but they had a very tumultuous relationship. My father was an addict, alcoholic as well.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So was my older brother. He's in recovery too. But my father, he drank and abused drugs, and he always, they didn't get divorced, but that was because like my mom had nowhere to go. She didn't have a job or like a college degree or anything, so she was kind of forced to stay with him. and getting divorced would have just been a pain in the ass for her. That's what she says, at least. And yeah, my father, he wouldn't come home at night. He was cheating on my mother, according to my mother. And I would always wonder, like, where the hell is dad? He wouldn't come home at all.
This when you're like a teenager?
No, I was a young kid, like
You're
7 years old.
Wow.
It would be like 3 a.m. and I'd be like sitting in the window waiting for him to pull in the driveway.
Damn.
Yeah, and it happened. That was years of that.
Years.
Years of my dad. Like, he would come home some nights and he wouldn't come home on other nights.
How was that? How did that affect the dynamic relationship of you two? Like, what did you?
Me and my dad.
Yeah.
It didn't really. I was mad at him for it, and I would always be like, "Why do you do this?" When I was really young, I didn't know what was happening, obviously. Mm-hmm. But I found out very, very. I eventually got curious and I figured it out. But like I always loved my dad.
You looked up to him?
Yeah, and he was like the dad of dad. Like
right.
Every kid has like or wants or looks up to their father. Like they were the strongest person on the planet. Like and that's how I looked at my dad. And I would stick up for him when my mom would be screaming at him. I would be
yeah.
I'd be like like I would try to, because I hated when they fought. And I just wanted them to be together and be happy. And that happened for years until like he just like flipped a switch and like stopped.
He just stopped cold turkey?
Yeah, well, he did go to AA and NA and like he would go on and off, but like AA is not he still drinks, but like not like
he doesn't abuse it.
No, he's not abusing it. He used to like, do the cocaine and like they smoked pot and shit, my parents. But he just stopped. Like he was like, all right, I had enough of this, and that was it. And he stopped like, I want to say like probably around. He stopped being the way he was like 15 years ago, maybe something like maybe a little more than that.
Okay.
Like not come like he all of a sudden he just like would come home every night. He just stopped doing it. I don't know what it was. I never even I should ask him like what.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, because we have a great relationship. Me
do.
and my mom and my father too. They do everything together.
That's cool.
My mother's like Sicilian, strong Italian woman. Like they don't really like break up households.
Right. No. Yeah.
They
work through it.
Yeah, they just deal with it.
Yeah. Most definitely.
And she's like the backbone, of the family. Like if it wasn't for her, it's me, 2 brothers, and my father.
Yeah.
So like, she's just dealing with a bunch of dudes.
Right.
Super strong. She's still the same way. She's just like she's the rock of the family. Yeah.
Did so you went to high school? You graduated high school. Where'd you go to high school?
So I went to 2 different high schools.
Okay.
I went to school. Well, no, I went to one. I went to 2 high schools. I did my freshman year in Long Island, and then I moved to Queens.
Okay.
And I finished high school in Astoria. Well, I went to school in Long Island City.
Okay.
It was the old Long Island City High School, and they turned it into like it was called the Academy of American Studies. It was right in Queensboro Plaza.
Right.
Like right across from right next to the train. Down the block from infamous Queensbridge.
Right.
And that's where I went. That's where I finished school. Yeah.
And what was high school like? What were you like as a teenager?
Well, there's something that I want to mention. When I was a child, there's a couple of things actually, which definitely like led me to be the way I was. I went to sleepaway camp.
You went to sleepaway camp
as a young kid, me and my older brother. And one of the years I was there, or the last year I went, I was sexually assaulted by a male counselor there.
Wow. How old were you?
I was 8.
You were 8?
Yes. It was full on rape, I guess you can call it.
That's fucking wild, man.
And then I came home from camp that summer, and I turned 9 September 6th. Mm-hmm. And then it was like this time of year, I started smoking pot.
At 9?
At 9 years old, yeah.
At 9. And you didn't disclose any of this information to anybody at the family when you went back home?
No, not till I was older.
Okay.
I didn't tell anyone until I was like 20-something years old. 21 or 22.
So you said there was 2 things that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and then couple years later, right before 9/11, on Father's Day, my father's business burned down.
Oh,
And
that's
killed
right.
a bunch of firemen.
You told me
A bunch of
that story.
FDNY guys. 3 FDNY guys died, and like 60 guys got injured. It was the deadliest fire in New York City since 1969. Something happened. I don't know what it was in '69, but and then my father lost his business, lost a ton of money, had to rebuild, and all this nonsense. Excuse me. And then 9/11 happened a couple months after that. That's September. And we couldn't afford to live in Long Island anymore.
Right.
It's just, and like being far from the business, because my dad would commute from Nassau to Queens every day. They just wanted to be closer. They needed like a cheaper lifestyle. The taxes are so high in Long Island, like it's ridiculous. And
Yeah.
so we moved into the house my mother grew up in Astoria.
In Astoria.
Yeah, it was my grandmother owned it. My father bought her out, renovated the whole house to make it like a one family, because it was like a 3-family house.
Right.
Like top floor, middle floor, basement were apartments. And we turned it into like a 1-family house.
Okay.
And that's where we moved into. So I went from, going to school in Long Island to now going to school in Queens. Huge, culture shock for me, life-changing moment. But by that point, I was doing all sorts of drugs.
So at 9 you started smoking weed.
Yeah, I started smoking pot.
So let's go through like from 9 to like at this point that you're talking about. Like how did that develop?
Drug-wise,
Yeah.
I started smoking pot and drinking. And then my friends started smoking, the kids that were my age, because I was smoking pot like before everyone that I knew in my grade. But by the time like 11, 12 rolled around, we were all smoking pot like every day, me and my friends. In Long Island, like the community was small. And like all the kids that were older than us, we knew, because we all like were in the same area.
Right.
And they were all, being teenagers, smoking pot and drinking, partying, the high school kids, like.
Yeah.
And they were selling drugs, and that's how we got our drugs. It was super easy for us. And then we became friends with them, and it was like a generational thing, like in our school, because it was such a tight knit place. There was only like 400, 500 kids in that school, maybe like 400 kids, like 100 kids a grade. And then I moved to Queens, and it was like 1,000 kids a grade.
That's crazy.
So it was crazy. Yeah, it was really different. And then, so by the time I was 14, I knew what cocaine was already because of my father.
Okay.
Like I found some of it in his car a couple times.
Oh, okay.
And I would like taste it when I was like 7, 8 years old.
Damn.
But my first actual time doing cocaine, like sniffing a line of it, was when I was 13.
13.
Yeah. I was with I remember my friend Vinny Passeri, who was like 4 years older than me. So he was like 17.
Yeah.
And I remember a girl in my grade, Ariel, and me, and we were smoking pot together and doing coke. I was 13. I remember I was in the back of his Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we had like a CD case, and I was like, a rolled up dollar bill, and I was sniffing. I was 13. By the time I was 14, 15, I had tried Xanax and Klonopin, then ecstasy and all the other stupid drugs, shrooms, and shit like that. And then
Did you stick to something? Was something more?
I really loved smoking pot and drinking, and I liked cocaine a lot. And then I found Xanax, and I had like a 6-month stint with that, where I was like not addicted, but I was taking it a lot. And then I just, I always did stupid shit when I was on Xanax.
Yeah.
Like I would lose shit, or I would forget shit, or I would get into fights. You black out on that stuff. You can't remember anything. And I was like, I got to stop doing this. And I hated the way it made me feel the next day. So I just stopped taking it. I almost just did it just to get wasted. Like I didn't even like the feeling of it. I just did it because it made me like, it took me out of this realm,
Yeah.
Because you're so obliterated. And when you're mixing it with alcohol and pot, like you're not there,
Right.
Yeah. So, and then I moved to Queens, and I didn't find opiates till I graduated.
Graduated high school.
High school, yeah. I just graduated by the skin of my teeth. And I started training for fighting.
You started training after you graduated high school.
So like the summer went by, or I'm sorry, 12th grade, I was drinking a lot and I put on some weight. I was drinking a lot of beer, like nonstop. We were like, high school kids, like funneling beer, keg parties, stupid shit like that. And I got chubby. And I'm like, I just broke up with my girlfriend, my ex-girlfriend. And I was like, I gotta I gotta get in shape so I could, go on the prowl, And I didn't want to go to like a regular gym. And at the time, the UFC was getting really popular because of the Ultimate Fighter show. And I was watching UFC any chance I got. And I remember thinking like, I want to like train jiu-jitsu and box and stuff. And that's how I want to get in shape. So I found a gym in Astoria. I started training. And then 4 months later, I had my first amateur fight.
And this is also, you were also doing opiates at the same time?
Not yet.
Okay.
So what happened was, that year went by, I turned 18, and I hurt my neck training. And I remember I was at a bar that my friend worked at. He was bartending, and I was with my other friend at the bar drinking, and I was complaining about my neck. And he was like, yo, you want a Vicodin? Because he was selling Vicodin. I was like, all right. And I took one, and I remember like having a drink and like smoking a joint or something. And I remember feeling like really good.
Yeah, that's all right.
And I was like, oh, this is new feeling. And, the week went by, my neck like got better basically. And then we were at the bar again the next week, and my friend was there with me again. And I'm like, hey, you got any more Vicodin?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, give me 3 of them. And I bought 3 of them. I took them. And I remember being in bed that night and thinking like I took one at the bar, then I came home, I took the other 2, and I was like, I felt great. I was like super warm and tingly feeling, the blanket, that opiate warm blanket feeling.
Right.
And I remember thinking like, holy shit, this feels so good. And then it just progressed, just more and more. And then the next thing you know, I'm eating 20, 30 Vicodin a day,
A day.
Yeah. And then I found...
Were you getting sick? Like if you didn't use, were you getting sick off that shit?
Yeah, eventually.
Like you were getting dope sick, right?
Yeah, I would like stop taking them and I'd be like, what the fuck? I feel like shit. And I didn't even realize like what it was yet.
Right.
Like, fuck, I feel terrible. Like
that's in your bones.
it's like in your, it's
in
like
your bones, right?
Deep in you. Yeah, like your muscles and your bones and you're like cold. It's like so deep, the cold. Like it doesn't, like you can't warm up, Like, and like people like don't understand. They're like, just stop taking them. So just stop taking them and that's it. And I'm like, you don't understand. Not only is it like physically ridiculous feeling, like the worst flu ever, but it's also mentally like terrible.
Well, I saw guys in rehab that were dope sick, and like the first 2 weeks they were basically in fetal position.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like 3 weeks later, that motherfucker's running around the rehab and shit. Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, but I'm not familiar with this, bro. Like I used cocaine and some, like, speed and ice mixed together.
Yeah.
So I really didn't understand that whole opiate, dope sick, heroin. So so you were taking 30 pills a day?
Yeah,
At
like
a
throughout the day. Yeah.
Okay.
By the end of the day, 30,
fucking
40
crazy,
pills.
man.
It's really not though.
That's not crazy?
I mean, it is, yeah, like, to a regular person. To a regular person, but like, if you were to talk to like a heroin addict, they'd be like, like 30 pills wouldn't do anything to me because I'm shooting dope now. You know?
Okay.
So then you graduate.
All right.
And like then I found OxyContin, and I was like, holy shit, it's like another level.
It's another
opiate.
level of high.
Yeah, it's super strong. There's no acetaminophen in it, so it's like a really small pill that's like stronger than like all these big pills at once. And and then I started taking those.
Okay. And how old were you at this point?
Like 19.
19.
Yeah, and
you're training.
I'm trying. Well, yeah, I'm able to like I'm in and out at this point.
Okay.
I had fights, and then I would, and then I started to spin out of control though.
Okay.
Yeah. And then fighting took like the back seat.
Right.
Because I didn't give a shit at that point.
So would you say this is the height of your active addiction? Or no, it progressed?
No, not even close.
Okay.
Yeah. So then I started taking ridiculous amounts of oxy.
Okay.
Like the same thing as with the Vicodin, like 20, 30 pills a day. Like now I'm sniffing them, I'm smoking them.
Smoking them.
Yeah. Off of like 10, free
Yeah,
base.
yeah.
And then I went to rehab first time.
This is the first time you went to rehab.
I was 21 down here in Palm Beach. It's called B-Hop.
I went to be.
Oh, yeah, we had this conversation.
Yeah, we had this conversation.
So I went there. I left early. And
What do you mean you left early?
I just...
You AWOL'd?
Yeah, AWOL'd, yeah.
How many days in?
Like 17 days in.
17 days in, you just bounced.
I said, fuck this place.
What?
And I came home to Queens and like I relapsed the day I got back.
The day you got back,
I just did not...
started doing oxys again.
Yeah, I did not want to get sober. Yeah. So I go back to using, now my parents kick me out, homeless. Then I go to a homeless shelter upstate New York called St. Christopher's.
Okay.
I got into a fight there. They kicked me out. Then I came home. I'm using.
They let you back in home. Your parents.
Yeah.
Okay.
I promised I was going to stay sober. Then I started using again. They kicked me out. So I'm like on the streets. And then I went to, I came back to Florida.
For what?
To like live in a halfway house.
Oh, you not even to go to rehab. You just came back to live in a halfway house.
Oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I went to a crisis center in Jamaica, Queens.
Okay.
I was there for like 21 days. I stayed sober. Then I came out and I was sober. And I'm like, look, I'm clean. My parents were like, all right, we'll put you in a halfway house. But I wanted to come to Florida to train.
Okay.
With the people that I'm training with now.
Wow.
They had just opened like a big gym down here. And I came down here. I got a place to live. I was actually living in the gym in like a back room. And I got down here and I started hanging out with the kids that I met in rehab and B-Hop.
Okay.
Some of them were like local.
Right.
And they showed me how to shoot drugs.
Well, let's talk about that, man. Because I have no fucking idea what that whole life is. I have no idea what that experience is. You started shooting what?
Oxys. Or Oxycontin. Yeah.
What's the difference between smoking them and shooting them?
It's just way stronger.
Okay.
The rush is stronger, and it just hits you way harder.
So these dudes that went
it's like an immediate rush.
It's an immediate rush.
Yeah. So I met these dudes in there. I called them when I got back down here, and we started getting high together. And they showed me, they were all these kids were already using needles. Mm. And they showed me how to use them. And, they had to shoot me up first so I could see, and then I learned how to do it on my own. And then so at that point, I was shooting pills, like Oxycontin.
And was it just like that? Like the first time you shot,
that was it. I was like, what the fuck? I wasted all my money. I should have been shooting them this whole time. And that's what I did. I was in the gym, but I wasn't in the gym really. And I was just running around Florida getting high. And then I caught a big case down here. I got arrested for a home invasion robbery, felony battery.
Right.
And I was in jail, and then they actually dismissed the case because the person that was supposed to testify against me didn't show up to court because he was a wanted felon.
And what were you looking at? Like for
25 to life.
25 to life.
Yeah. They let me out of the back door of gun club, and I met up with my friend that night, and I had my first overdose. I did heroin for the first time that night. Get out of jail.
You escaped jail. Mm-hmm. You escaped prison, and then you decided to shoot heroin.
Fuck this! I was dope sick.
Stepped
still.
it up. You're dope sick.
Yeah, I was in jail for all those days, but I was still sick.
Right.
Freezing my ass off in there. And I said, all right, I'm going to get high again. And then that's what I did. And I had my first overdose that night. The guy, I remember we went all the way to Miami to buy heroin from this guy that my friend knew. And the guy was like, don't do it all at once. 4 of my clients already overdosed.
Wow.
I was like, fuck, please.
So
then as I was shooting it, I knew something was wrong. Like I knew it. as I was like, that's how fast it was hitting me. Like I wasn't even done like doing the whole shot yet.
Yeah.
And as it was going in me, I was like, uh-oh. And I just did it all anyways. And I woke up in the hospital.
So you OD'd and then they Narcan? They brought you
Well,
back.
my
to life.
friend was with me and he fucking called the ambulance. We were in the parking lot of the Hard Rock Casino
Right.
in Hollywood, Florida. And they revived me in the ambulance. And they brought me in the hospital and I left the hospital. And I got high again.
So after you OD'd, you got high again.
Yeah. As any normal addict would do, right?
Well, I mean, so
Yeah, I know.
how long? So how long? What's the time frame? How long did this happen? Like how long? So now you moved up to now you're now
heroin.
basically you're doing heroin,
Yeah.
strictly heroin, shooting heroin.
Yeah.
And did you go back to rehab?
Yeah, like 20 times. I was in and out, man. I came home.
No, really, you seriously fucking went to rehab over 20 times?
No. I mean, I've been in like a lot
Seriously,
of different.
how many times do you think
I've been in
rehab?
real treatment centers
Yeah,
12,
real treatment.
12 times.
12 times.
But I've been in crisis centers, homeless shelters, psych wards, hospitals, jails, like 30-something facilities. In and out. Like I would wake up in the hospital and then I'd go to detox and I'd go to detox and I'd go, I would just go in and out. But I would just keep, I didn't like take the, I didn't take the suggestions that
Right.
we hear in the rooms, you know? I just was like, all right, I'll use fighting as my reason to stay sober. And it never worked.
Never worked.
Never.
So what was the end for you? How did you, I mean,
I went through all these trials and tribulations and, I ended up getting sober for like 20 months at one point. When I was 23, I went away to this place called Samaritan Village in upstate New York.
okay.
I went away for 6 months.
And was it rehab?
It was a therapeutic community, they called it. Like Daytop.
Yeah.
Like a place like that, but it's Samaritan Village.
Okay.
I came out, I stayed sober for like 14 months longer.
Right.
For like 20 months. I had
Right.
shoulder surgery, I relapsed. Then I ran for like 6 months hard again, heroin, coke. Now I'm shooting coke, I'm shooting heroin, I'm shooting crack. Then I went away again. I stayed sober for like a year and a half. I had a really, so in between these times that I'm staying sober for 20 months, whatever, I would fight, like have like 4 or 5 fights. I would win, and then I'd relapse. So I was still accruing like a winning record throughout this time, in and out of my addiction.
Right.
And then I went away again. I came out. I was sober for about a year and a half. I had a really big fight. And I got hurt in the fight. I had to have a metal plate put in my face. I was in the trauma unit, the head trauma unit for like 5 days. And they were giving me morphine and Dilaudid like every 4 hours for like 5 days. So when I came out, naturally I went back to heroin.
Right.
So all the opiates I was taking. And that's when I really went nuts. My parents kicked me out again. I was homeless for a while. And I'm just doing everything I can to get high. I'm robbing people. I'm robbing drug dealers.
I was just going to ask you how you're forming the habit.
Yeah, I was stealing. I did anything I could. I would sell, selling. I sold all my
Boosting shit,
belongings.
yeah.
Boosting, robbing people, robbing drug dealers, whatever I could do. But now, like, I'm addicted to heroin still, but I'm shooting coke at, like, excessive rates. Coke and crack. Like, I just couldn't stop shooting cocaine. I was, like, in love with shooting cocaine. Like, when I have drug dreams now, it's not about heroin. It's about cocaine.
Really?
Yeah, like shooting crack or coke.
You still have
I was
dreams?
a speed demon, yeah. Yeah, I loved it. No, I haven't had one in a while, but like
when you do.
But that's how like where my addiction went was like I was more of like a speed guy at the end.
At the end.
Yeah, and I've shot meth before. But like where we're in Queens, like it wasn't like a thing really, meth. Mm-hmm. Maybe in Manhattan, but that wasn't my scene. Like I was like, coke, crack and heroin.
Yeah.
Queens,
Yeah.
So and I was going and like so Thanksgiving came. I missed Thanksgiving because I wasn't allowed home. And then Christmas came. I wasn't allowed home. And I was like living on the street. I was living in motels, you know, I was couch surfing. And then I overdosed Christmas Eve 2015
Where?
in Queensbridge, in a motel across the street from Queensbridge, in the Best Western. And I woke up in the hospital the next day. Apparently someone like in the room next to me heard like a loud bang, called the front desk. And the cops came. And it was crazy because like I came to in the ambulance.
Okay.
And I remember I was in there with like 3 cops. And I'm like, why the fuck are they here? And I was like, oh shit, I'm probably going to jail because I had like a ridiculous amount of cocaine and heroin.
Right.
I had like bundles of heroin and lots of cocaine.
In the hotel room.
In the motel with me.
In the hotel room.
And I'm like, where's my drugs? And they're like, well, we're going to take that, you know? And I'm like, where's my money? They're like, it's right here. And I'm like, so am I going to jail? They're like, nah, we don't feel like dealing with the paperwork. It's Christmas Eve. So we're going to just cut you loose at the hospital. I had enough drugs on me to go away.
Yeah.
Sure. And they gave me my money.
They
I
gave
had
you
like
the
a
money.
huge wad of cash. Yeah, it was weird. And I remember the cops' faces. And then I went away to treatment. I went to detox. I went to treatment. And that's when it like hit me. Like,
All right. So what hit you?
I just had enough, dude. I couldn't do it any longer.
Do you remember that? At what point? Like what
I just
specifically?
was exhausted.
You were fucking done.
I was mentally exhausted,
Yeah.
physically exhausted, and I just couldn't do the same. I couldn't do
running,
the
yeah,
run, the gun,
running.
and the in and the out, the streets, just that life was just too much, man. I just couldn't. I mean, I could do it, but only for so long, you know.
Yeah.
And the guy that became my sponsor, Tommy, like really helped me a lot. Like, and he was like, "You got to find God," you know.
So you met him after you got out of rehab?
No, I knew him for a while before that.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
So you said you got to find God.
he's like, yeah, you got to like find your higher power. So, and I've been in and out of the room, so I knew what he was talking about, you know? Mm-hmm. And I was 27 at this point. So the first time I went to a meeting when I was 21. So I already knew what AA and NA was. Like,
Okay.
I was very experienced with the rooms already at this point.
Okay.
I just never got clean, like, for a long period of time. Well, I did, but I just never stayed clean.
Okay.
So I was in the state-run facility, disgusting place. There was, like, feces on the walls in the bathroom. It was like jail, basically, but not jail. New York state-run facility. And I remember, like, being in there, and it snowed, like, 5 feet one night. And I remember I was looking out the window, and I was like, fuck, I'm stuck here. But, like, in my head, I was like, well, it's not that bad, actually.
Right.
I'm warm. It was, like, 3 weeks since I got in there, so I was, like, feeling better now. Mm-hmm. And I had, like, a hoodie on and a pair of sweatpants, and I'm like, well, I feel pretty good, you know? And then, like, I remember, like, closing my eyes and, like, being like, well, God, if you're real, if you're out there, I need you now, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's how my relationship with my higher power started. At the time, I didn't, like, call him God. Now I call him Jesus. Mm-hmm. You know, it evolved over time, and I've like come to the realization that there's obviously something bigger out there than just like my own thoughts. And I call my higher power Jesus. And that was it. I stayed there for like 40 something days. I got out and I just started going to meetings.
Right when you got out of the state run facility, you headed into meetings.
Yeah, my parents let me come home. And I just started hitting meetings all day, like twice a day or something.
And this was AA.
AA. I mean, I went to NA too, but
Right.
mostly AA. And
So did you do like over 90 and 90 and stuff?
yeah, I
like
did
that?
all that.
Yeah.
Then I started, I did my steps, the 12 steps, and my life changed. And that was it. I've been sober since. I still obviously go to meetings. Tonight I have a drop the rock meeting tonight. Group of guys. I have my home group.
Right.
I have all my sober
Right.
other sober friends. My brother's in recovery. My older brother, who's a heroin addict also. Everyone around me that's not, besides my wife and my family, everyone around me that's not fight related is sober. Like all my other friends are in sobriety.
Yeah.
I was just telling a guy that I'm trying to help. Like, I was telling him that today. I'm like, everyone that I hang out with is fucking sober.
Right.
Like, you don't hang out with anyone that's sober. He's like, bro, he was complaining to me today about like his life problems. And I'm like, well, go to a fucking meeting. And he's like, dude, you think going to a meeting right now is going to change my life? And I'm like, in the like right now, no. But eventually, 100% it will.
Right.
And he's like, you know, he was like getting mad with me, like I'm feeding him garbage, like bullshit. And I'm like, dude, you called me like, we've been doing this forever, these phone calls.
Going back and forth.
And I'm like, if you fucking were starting to go, I went to a meeting with him like 6 months ago. Yeah. I was like, if you had stayed consistent with meetings and stayed sober since we went, your life would be completely different right now.
You're just not
and
ready.
He's like, well, I don't want to hear that shit. And I'm like, so when are you going to be ready to hear it? Because next time you call me saying some stupid, like telling me your fucking life problems, like I'm just going to tell you to go to a meeting. I'm like, what I said to him was start calling someone else for help. Because I'm only going to tell you to go to meetings. So if you don't go to meetings, there's no reason to speak to me anymore because that's all I got for you.
Right.
I don't know any other way to fix your life. Like the only people that I know that are sober through our type of meetings, AA or NA. Not that I'm saying other stuff doesn't work, because I'm sure.
I mean, there's a lot of
smart recovery,
stuff,
all this other. But the only people that I know that are like, I don't know anyone that was like, yeah, I'm sober through smart recovery. I just don't.
No.
Maybe it's because I only hang out. I hang out with people that are in AA. Right. But like, I never met like a random person, and he was like, yeah, I'm sober through smart recovery. I've met a lot of random people like just wherever, and they're like, yeah, I'm sober. I go to AA.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, like, I don't know what the fuck else you want me to say to you. Like, go to a fucking meeting, because that's all I know. I don't know how else to get sober. Because when I did it on my own, I was like him. I would go a certain amount of time, I'd stay clean, and then something bad. And he said, you know what he said to me? He goes, bro, I just don't know what to do when life hits me. I just don't know how to cope with it. And I'm like, well, if you go to the meetings, you'll learn how to.
You could share about it.
I don't know how much. Yeah, and you learn ways to deal with shit. I don't know what else to say to you. I don't have any other answers. Like, so start fucking calling someone else. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, that's what I did. Meetings, well, God, going to meetings and helping other people. That's how I stay sober now,
And no pun intended, but one day at a time.
That's it.
One day at a time.
One day, literally, like sometimes it's like 1 hour at a time.
I know. I mean, it's crazy. Sometimes you and I like meet up at like for random reasons at a gas station or some shit like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll see the look on my face.
Yeah,
You're like, what the fuck's wrong with you, bro?
Yeah.
Did you use? I'm like, no, man.
Like, no,
I'm about to.
I'm going through it.
I want to.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm not going to. And it just so happens I run into you. I mean, that's happened like a couple times. Yeah, man. Yeah. And I think that too, if you really look at it, you're blessed, dude.
Oh, I know, dude.
You were looking at 25 to life.
Multiple overdoses.
Multiple overdoses. Mm-hmm. You went into so many detoxes, treatment-related facilities, and you are, that's a really quick, good segue into what you're doing now in terms of like the platform that you have. When I saw that post on Instagram regarding a couple years back, when I saw a post regarding recovery, how I hit you up. You work with a rehab facility. I mean, you put yourself out there for people to contact you about addiction, mental health, anything that they're going through. And a lot of people don't do that, man, in the rooms.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I see a lot of people in recovery that it's still a me program, and to each his own.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing that what really sparked me is to hit you up is like how open you were about your life. And that's not easy at 9. By all means, I have no idea what that feels like, but what you went through, and to be able 20 years later, whatever, to come in and sit down and say, this is what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to, really thank you, bro, for, what you've helped me, what you've given me, what you allowed me to be your friend in this journey that we have together. And this is why I wanted to bring you on. I'm really glad to be your friend. And you're part of, like, my family. I was hooking you up. I was cooking for you for a while before fights and stuff like that. I still do the private chef thing. But, yeah, I want to have you back.
Okay.
I want to have you back just to catch up with you. If you want to let whoever's watching this, let them know what your Instagram is. They can hit you up if they want anything. If you want to give a shout out for that.
Yeah, I'm Jared Flash Gordon on Instagram, or J Flash Gordon MMA on Twitter.
And if you are watching this video, you can please like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you want to get in contact with me, you can email BAMNRealRecoveryTalk@gmail.com if you want to talk about anything regarding recovery or addiction. Thanks a lot, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later.
All right, bro.
All right.